Today on Upfront, the middle class tax cut. There are different ideas on how to do it and how to pay for it. Next, Republican Representative Terry Katzma and Democratic Representative Daniel Riemer debate the competing plans. What's best for you, the taxpayer? Plus, the state taking action on climate change. Is there more pressure on politicians to act now? And meet the next host of Upfront, WISN 12 News anchor Adrienne Pedersen.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. Here's an idea almost everybody agrees with. There should be a middle-class tax cut in Wisconsin. But that's also where the agreement ends. Republicans and Democrats have very different ideas on how to do that tax cut. Republicans want to take the state's budget surplus and return it to taxpayers. They passed their tax cut plan Tuesday in the Assembly and Wednesday in the Senate. But Governor Evers, who campaigned on a 10% middle-class tax cut, and Democrats want to scale back the state's tax credit for manufacturers and use that money to pay for part of the tax cut. The governor says he'll include his plan for a tax cut in the budget that he'll be releasing on February 28th. Republicans want him to act on their plan now. We're talking about the competing tax plans today with Republican Representative Terry Katzma of Oostburg, who sits on the Joint Finance Committee, and Democratic Representative Daniel Riemer of Milwaukee, who's been vocal on this topic and sits on the Ways and Means Committee. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
So one of these has been passed already, so we'll begin with you, Representative Katzma. Why is the Republican tax cut plan better for the middle class and better for the state of Wisconsin?
Well, we're trying to work together with Governor Evers, and even though when he was elected, there was less than 50% of votes that went to Governor Evers. And then soon after that, on January 10, the Assembly Republicans sent a letter to Governor Evers outlining about 11 different things that we thought we could work together with the governor on, whether it be pre-existing conditions, and we passed that bill with bipartisan support. And we wanted to focus on middle-class tax cut, right. and that's really what we wanted to work on.
And so why do you think your plan is best?
Well, then we determined that we have this budget surplus that was done based on good budgeting under the Walker administration, and we think that money should be returned back to the taxpayers.
So just use the surplus to largely fund this.
Correct.
All right. Daniel Riemer, let's talk about why you think the Democrats, and we should say the final plan hasn't been laid out yet, but we have a sense of what the governor's talking about, what you're talking about. Why is your plan better?
Sure. Well, there are real differences between the Republican tax plan that Representative Katzma just outlined a bit of and the Democratic tax plan that both Governor Evers and others, including myself on the Ways and Means and Joint Finance Committee, have put forward. The real two differences are this. The Republican tax plan does maintain the so-called manufacturing and agriculture tax credit, which was created in 2011. Many, including myself, have been critical of that piece of it because about 80% of that tax credit goes to claimants who are making $1 million or more. In fact, 21 claimants who make $30 million or more receive about $1.8 million in credits. Democrats think that's unfair. We'd like to see a restoration of something called the Earned Income Tax Credit, which Republicans in 2011, the same budget year, scaled back, which actually increased taxes on working families who are trying to make their way into the middle class. The second big difference is that the Republican plan cuts into this surplus, but there's not a lot of clarity if it is a surplus. Budgets are complex, they change. You have to balance priorities like education, healthcare, and funding transportation to fix potholes in our streets. So the Democratic argument is let's find a way to pay for it by scaling back, but not eliminating, a tax cut that goes to millionaires, making sure that we still support manufacturers and farmers, but support smaller manufacturers and small farms rather than the biggest of those groups. And then figure out how to balance the priorities within the budget so that we can continue to fund education, healthcare, and fixing our roads.
Representative Katzma, let me have you address. This is the primary criticism you hear from Democrats about the Republican plan is that, the manufacturer's tax credit benefits just a very small number of wealthy manufacturers. How do you respond to that?
Well, the issue, Mike, is that Wisconsin is a manufacturing state. We are now second in per capita in manufacturing jobs. Manufacturing is an important key component in Wisconsin. And why do we want to upset that issue or upset that process with increasing taxes if the Democratic plan is really a tax shift? And we want to lower the taxes to the middle class without raising taxes on somebody else, because those are the ones who create the jobs, and we just don't want to upset them.
Do you feel it would chill, a passage of this kind of legislation, the governor's version of the tax cut, would chill the business climate here?
Well,
Would make people reconsider expansions of facilities or operations?
Businesses and industry want certainty and predictability. And when you have these sort of issues of discussion like this, it causes uncertainty.
As you heard Representative Reamer, the argument is that there could be unintended consequences with this when you make, as he calls it, a tax shift. What's your response to that?
Well, I think both parties have done what Representative Katzma described as a tax shift, as I outlined earlier. But Democrats are pretty clear that we think that paying for this by jeopardizing the investments in education or healthcare or roads to maintain an unfair tax cut for millionaires is not the way to do this.
Representative?
Right, but it's these folks that are creating the jobs, Mike, and it's important that we just don't upset that. And the jobs that they're creating are critical, and if you tax something more, if you raise the price of something, you're going to get less of it, and that's the key component here.
I want to address a couple of other parts to this, and the argument you hear, and I'll begin with Representative Katzma, and I'll have Representative Reamer jump in on this, but one of the arguments you hear is, okay, we have what most people call a surplus right now, but what if the economy goes south?
Yeah.
We're using all of this money for a tax cut.
Right.
What happens?
Right. I want to talk about that surplus, because that really is a true surplus. We just don't, we rely on the Legislative Fiscal Bureau to document these numbers. And it's kind of like if you go to the store and you pay $20 for something, and you do that every time, and then due to some efficiencies that the store has or some coupons that you bring, now the price is $18. So you have $2 of change. Now, you expect the store to give you back that $2. You don't want the store to say to you, I'm going to keep that $2 and I'll decide in the future how that should be spent. That's your money, that $2 change.
But if there's a recession,
the same analogy.
If there's a recession, do we find ourselves in trouble?
If that is true, that is true. So the rainy day fund that we have is $320 million. That's much more than what it has been in the past, and we feel that that's appropriate.
Yeah, I want to get your response to that.
Well, the good news is that the economy is doing good things right now. Unemployment is low. People are, by and large, able to find work, but economies don't. History shows that economies don't head in the right direction forever. Recessions come along. Sometimes they're really big, like they were recently. Sometimes they're more modest. But in either case, as the stewards of public funds, we have to look carefully at how we appropriately do tax cuts, invest in education, healthcare, roads, the things that we do through the budget process. Again, part of the Democratic argument is let's do it through the budget process so we have a sense of the whole picture.
Representative, I'll give you the final word on this. Why shouldn't this be done through the budget? You're doing this and saying we think the governor should sign it now. Why should it be done
Because this
now?
is due to a surplus that was done in previous Walker administrations, and that's why there's $2.1 billion going into this next budget, and that's more than what there has ever been. So there will be enough resources that we can accommodate in the next budget. This money should be returned back to those who paid it.
Expect it'll be vetoed, honestly?
Well, we're hopeful that the governor will take a good look at it.
Representative, will it be vetoed?
You'll have to ask the governor. You'll have to have Governor Evers on the show. But I hope what the viewers are clear about is that certainly Democrats have a way of doing this. We want to emphasize middle-class tax relief, but also tax relief for working families. Do that in a way that scales back tax cuts that have gone to millionaires. Republicans have a different way of doing it, but I think what I hope people are hearing is that there's probably a compromise in there. So I hope
Is there a compromise in there?
Well, we hope we can work it out.
Representatives, thanks very much for being with us. Terry Katzma, Daniel Reamer, good to have you on the
Mike.
program. You
Thank
bet.
you, Mike.
Coming up next on Upfront, Wisconsin takes a new stance on climate change. The reaction, and is this an issue where voters are now ahead of politicians?
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.